we're going to take a look at how to find the slope of a line given 2 points and no graph is given. So we have to try to figure out what is the slope between these two lines given the points. Now, it would be very possible to take a graph and plot these 2 points out and then figure out the rise and run from that, but we can also do it using an equation, and that equation looks like this. M is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 minus y1 represents the change in y. So how much is the y value from point 1 to point 2 or point 2 to point 1 changing? And then the x2 minus x1, the bottom part, represents the change in x. So how much is the x changing between these 2 points on a line? Now, this one could be very helpful if the points are really far away and it's hard to graph, or if maybe we have decimals or something like that that is involved as well when we're trying to solve. Now, hopefully we don't have too many decimals, but it could in fact happen. When we get this formula, we now have to figure out what is our first point and what is our second point. And so I'm going to label it up here, and you'll notice that I have x1, y1 as the first two, 3, 6, and x2, y2 as the second one, 9, 9. The order doesn't matter, and I'm going to go through the other order if we flip-flop them a little bit later. But for right now, we have 3, 6, and 9, 9. Let's plug them into our equation. So the 9s are going to go in for the x2 and the y2, and the 3 and the 6 is going to go in for the x1 and the y1, and it's going to look like this here. Okay, so you'll notice that y2 is 9, that's our second y value, and y1 is 6, so 9 minus 6. And then we have x2, which is 9, and x1, which is 3, and so 9 minus 3, which is 6. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a slope of 3 over 6. In all cases, what I'm going to ask you to do as a teacher, and I'm sure other teachers, depending on where you go to school or what you're learning here, are going to also ask that you probably put this into lowest terms. Now, some might ask for a decimal as well. And so if we're going to do this into lowest terms, we're going to have a slope of 1/2. And this is going to represent how steep the line is. 1/2 isn't necessarily a super steep line, but it does represent the slope of this line. Now, what happens, in a case where we decide that, well, we want to switch it up. So let's switch up our x2 and our y2. There we go, flip them around. And now we have our first point there happens to be our second point, and our second point happens to be our first point. We just flip-flopped them. And sometimes that's important because you might not know what is the first point, second point. You might just be given 2 points. And so how do we know which one to use? Well, it doesn't matter. And I want to show you in this case here. With them swapped, our equation is going to look like this. It's instead of being 9 minus 6, it's going to be 6 minus 9. And instead of being 9 minus 3, it's going to be 3 minus 9. And what we're going to get from here is negative 3 over negative 6. And you might be like, oh man, like the previous one was positive, this one's negative. Well, it's not actually, because we have 2 negatives. And anytime we have 2 negatives, that's going to give us a positive, because it is still a division statement. And so you can simplify it to positive 1/2, which happens to be the exact same equation or exact same slope as we previously found when the points were flip-flopped. So it doesn't matter what order you do them in. You can choose to use one of them as 2, one of them as 1. Just make sure that your point 1 is in the second spots and point 2 is in the first spots, and then you should have no problem getting your answer. I hope this video has helped you, and all the best as you do your math.